Hey all! Happy New Year! And I know this is a surprise stream because I just scheduled it, but hey, at least we're starting. We're starting streaming again this year. Um, Sorry if I didn't stream the last few weeks of last year. There's family celebrations and everything, and I didn't want anyone to just. But let's get right into the meat. You know, and it might seem weird, because you have a Call of Duty channel talking about a Halo theory, but if you actually if you were actually looking at my last streams, I was saying that I was playing more Halo than Call of Duty because of the fact of the matter that, well, Call of Duty's, let's just say, it's not in a good place right now. There's a lot of stuff that it has done bad, and I went to Halo Infinite, and I've been enjoying Halo Infinite. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna be a Halo only guy. No, I'm gonna be a Call of Duty guy, but just this year it's gonna be Halo Infinite. The majority of the time. But that said, I did play the campaign. I did enjoy it. It was a heck of a story. For me, return to Halo after a lot of stuff, and it actually led me wondering about the Salanin, the Endless, who they are and why did the Forerunners contain them and everything. And I was waiting for Hidden Xperia, Halo Canon to actually make videos on who they are and why the Forerunners imprisoned it. And I was like, yeah, I think I know where this is going. And it's not just, something that for us is like something worse than flood. Yeah, I can understand why. But it's more so I started to see why 343 put in the Saladin, not just as the new baddie, but it's just because when you start to uncover more so of the history of the Forerunners, more so of an ancient civilization. Let's ground it in that. When you start looking at ancient civilization history, you have time to explore, to have time to not only their golden age and everything, you start to see that there's some very dark scenes that they have covered. And the Salanin are based. Well, my theory is that they're based on these ancient civilizations that were erased by the ones that we already know. One of the typical examples, going very, very, very far back, is if you actually notice on the Sumerian history, and more so the the Crete history that it has. And they were not the only civilization that were at the time. There were several others. It's just when they were at the height of the power and they were seeing threats on other civilizations that might, you know, tumble them down, they actually launched a full on attack. Either military or through economics. Making their stuff that they need, expensive and everything. And one of the things is that you could say you can actually take it as Troy, the city of Troy, and the nine cities that it happened. It means that there were height of commerce, and everybody just wanted to tone down, and in order for them to actually non-exist. It wasn't until we found the ruins that, hey, the city of Troy exists. So many of these stories that Homer and other philosophers that were telling, it means that they were based on some truth. It was just no myth. It was more so, hey, then these ancient civilizations that they are talking about that were eradicated by others that were powerful, uh, it means that they were no myth. And even though they seem like myth, it's not. So another example would be the city of Carthage. We know about the city of Carthage because it was one of the greatest enemies of the Roman Empire at the time, you know, in the matters of commerce and technology. And what happened? Romans eradicated all after eradicating Carthage through sieges. Uh, all the history about the Carthage was of the city itself was like, oh, they were evil. They treated immigrants like this, blah blah blah. They're people, and it wasn't true. But they tried to bury the greatness that Carthage was, and subsequently, after somebody poked nose over there and started to actually done the research of why Carthage was so hated, and you're like, oh, okay, we understand. Uh, let's go very further back. Um, let's go with the Egyptians before this. Well, let's go Sumerians because you know the image is from the Sumerian tablets. Sumeria was a small empire, and there were small nomadic cities around, and it was starting to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yet yeah, it was the Akkadians that they seemed to grow on power as well. You know, kind of like Sumerian and Akkadians could be related to Halo as the Forerunners versus humans. But the difference is here's no flood as per se, you know, the flood not infection, but the flood, the flood rate. But if you start looking at the Sumerian history that it has, even though it speaks of gods and everything, but it also speaks of several civilizations that were at the time of the Sumerians before the flood, you know, but they never spoke about them. And this is even before Atlantis. It seems like it. So what ends up happening is that you get mentions about the civilizations that happens to be around you, and you never describe them if they have the same power you had commerce with them. So that in history they're just poof, they're just gone. It's done, and it's a myth. And because it's a myth, many historians or archaeologists uh, are not too interested in poking that because they think, oh, it's a myth and it's everything. It was same what happened with Troy until somebody with money said, hey, let's try to find Troy. Let's see if it is real. And then you find the first ruins and then you start digging and it's like, hey, this is a different city, different time. Until somebody pokes at those myths of the Sumerians and where the heck are the other um, civilizations at the time, we might not know. A very example is there's like three ruins of different eras older than Sumerians that are found. One that is like 12,000 years, um, one that is 8,000 that nobody knows where, another one that is 10,000 that's around Crete. And you're like, did the Sumerians and the Crete knew each other? Did they converse with each other? Did they talk about each other? You don't know because many of the records are gone, and everything that survived, it's more so tale through a myth. And until you start digging, you start to see more civilizations that were in contact with each other. Same with the Forerunners. You know, it's just, oh, the Forerunners and they were humans, but we're never explained if the Sanghili, the Brutes, the Grunts, the Jackals, um, the the drones. You don't know if those civilizations had technology also at the time, and just the Forerunners are discussing that they were primitive, you know, and they returned humanity to being primitive. And you're like, okay, but you only speak about the ones that we encounter in Halo, you know, through the Covenant. What happened to the other species? There must have been more, and they must have been eradicated. But because the Selenin, you know, another species that was there that was uncatalogued, survive the Halo fires, then it means that, hey, they didn't explore the whole galaxy, or they did knew about them, but because they were no relevant towards, you know, the mantle of responsibility, the Forerunner Empire, and achieving greatness and everything. It was like, who the heck are these? It's like, it's like before the flood. Let's put it this way: because it's not only a biblical flood, because in ancient civilizations, Egyptians, Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, they had this description of a flood that happened, and it must have passed down to the Hebrews that were nomadic tribes, and they recorded it as one of their myths on their old god. We don't know if it was just a natural phenomenon, if it was caused by a deity, because at the times that these things are written, it's more so mythicized than in actual reality. Another thing is that in those floods is that, oh, there were survivors of it, but you didn't know they were existing. They just came into arrival because, hey, there's a flood, my kingdom disappeared, we are the few survivors. It's like, from where did you come from? And like, I had never known about you. And it's like, oh, we were like up there in the north or down in the south. And you were like, wow. So there were more survivors than, more civilizations. But because they were weaker, they must have been either assimilated or they were actually, exterminated. We don't know. What we do know is that from 6,000 uh, before Christ, civilization is like in a consistent, because every time there is a new discovery about the history about these ancient civilizations, it's expanded upon and theorized, and you have to find archaeological proof and everything to actually sustain those theories that you find throughout their mythicized history. So it's actually like we're doing like an archaeological investigation through Zeta Halo, through the Forerunners, um, recordings, and the Banish, digging in archaeological dig sites, and you started to find more information about the Selen. Now, if you actually explore, return back to Halo Infinite, if you actually explore the ring, you see that there's like these spots that seem that are key, that like these three-pointed metal things that you have that are in a point of map, and it seems more like if it was like a teleporter or a signal booster for something. You also have this Banish logos that are underground that you don't know what are there for, but they're scattered around the map that you can explore, and it's like it's almost like set up perfect for future DLCs in order for you to explore more in archaeological dig sites. Information about the Selenin, about the Forerunners meeting these new species, or I think ignore species, because the Spawn Empire says that it's unpreviously cataloged. It's almost like saying I'm a super. It's almost like saying that they just passed by them and they didn't know until uh, most species were destroyed. And because these survive, you're like, how do you survive? You were not supposed to survive this. And returning a little bit back to biblical, it's like the flood that Noah suffered with his family, and have to build the ark. And all of a sudden, when they arrive to ground, they find out that some of the ancient humans or some of the Nephilim or fallen angels survived the flood. And it's like, you were not supposed to survive. And it's like, well, here I am. I survived. You don't know. And because they were less than, they just got either contained or destroyed. Same with the Cellin. The Cellin were contained because they survive. It's like, no, they're too dangerous. But we are never given the chance of why they're so dangerous. And if they survive, there was no records, or I think there's records. There was this ancient scriptures that they have that. This guy's gonna kill me because I didn't make a reference of him. But let me search it real quick. But in those tablets, that guy says that there's like ancient scriptures of it, and he was trying to translate it in order for him to actually know if there's more information about selenin uh, in those tablets. The Forerunners try to hide it, but come on, come on. Oh, Red Numster. There we go. Credit for him to actually trying to decipher those tablets. But that actually made me the inspiration of this video. Is like, if you if we had ancient civilizations before, because everybody considered Egyptians to be the ancient one until we discovered the Sumerians. So there must have been before, and who might say that Atlantis was a city that was destroyed by the flood, and Sumeria was just one small and everything, or there were more cities, you know, we just don't know because natural phenomena, passage of time, all of the records were mostly on stones or clay tablets, so we might never know. What we do know is that 343 actually did a great thing, having this type of mystery. Now we're like doing Indiana Jones hunting information about this ancient culture, trying to decipher who they are, making theories about it. We have hidden experience theory, Red Lobster, we had Halo Cannon. Could it be could this Helen be precursors? Could it be a previously uncatalogued species because they were lesser and the Forerunners never looked their way? And it's in a certain way taking base from two games on that regard. Mass Effect with the Promethean history and in Free Space, a, a very old space simulator combat. But in both, they're ancient civilizations. The ancient ones, in Mass Effect case, it's the Prometheans. In Free Space, it's called actually the Ancients. But the in both of cases, it's like there was a top civilization that was conquering those that had space technology. But every time that they found a civilization that was like primitive or medieval or something of that level that didn't have space exploration at all, what they did is that they escaped him. They escaped that civilization. It's like there's nothing for us there, or we can just use them as labor for their natural resources, but it's not worth our time. So most of the time, those civilizations were just left there, you know, at their own fate. Same with the Prometheans, like they in Mass Effect, they found an ancient civilizations that were not technologically and advanced, and they didn't see any value except their natural resources, and they were like, "Yeah, it's a waste of our time. Let's gather what we a few of them, and we just go or stay in, use them as labor, but we see them as no potential to serve us in the greater purpose that we want." Same thing with the ancients in free space. So for a grand cataclysmic, from actually grabbing that idea to actually put it with the Forerunners is like, well, that's a very good concept. And then you have to actually put in that because they survive their apocalypse and they were supposed to survive because of the nervous system, I assume, then it means that it actually means that you know, the the Forerunners actually were just the biggest asshole in the universe. Well, they're actually the biggest asshole in the universe in Halo because of their pride and everything. But it also makes me question one thing, one theory that I think, this thing about the Spawn Empire saying they were not catalog. Could it be? I don't know. This is a theory. I'm not sure. Could it be because the Forerunners scathed some planets, some sentient creatures that they didn't believe to be uh, worthy of their time, either to help them ascend to some state so they can serve the Forerunners, or just as labor? Could it be that the Forerunners in just inputted the DNA data of all the species that are in this cycle, and the ones that they considered lesser, they didn't input it, and that's why the Halos only destroyed the life that we know, but not others. I don't know. It's a wild theory. I know. Maybe it has no basis, but it's just, if it is if it is like that, then it means that this, how how to put it, I think their mantle of responsibility of taking care of the whole galaxy, then it means that they didn't explore the whole galaxy. There were planets that they didn't know about, and therefore, uh, because they just left them through time, they just forgot about them. They grew, they had spatial technology, but by the time they fired the Halos, they were, it's like, no. But I don't know. But it is a good basis of what 343 had, based on what real history has done throughout to other civilizations. Let's put it this way: the only reason we know about certain nomadic tribes in the U.S. or certain tribes in Africa is because there were points of interest, because some of the tribes annihilated other tribes in order for them to be non-existent throughout the foot of history, but because others survived or they had information about those tribes, and it's because we know. So, on that regard, that's a very good thing that 343 grabs something from real life that has happened in history. Civilizations erasing civilizations, and never mentioning them again, or just no mention about them. But when you find out that they fought against them, and it was like, why did they fought them? There you have it. you know so, for as much as we say, oh, the forerunners and this and that, it's, let me put it this way: it's as if Atlantis had a rival. It knew that it was in downfall, and in order for that to survive, they had to spread. And but they discovered they had a rival city or civilization that was small but was starting to expand because they had the technology to actually survive it. And then they said, "We are more than you still, and we still have more technology than you. So we're going to contain you or annihilate you, and no one will know about you." And so it was just like Atlantis fell, and no other civilization was to claim except the ones that we wanted. And on that, we can actually assume, we can actually, put it like a theory, almost reality, that the Salanin, the Endless, are based on human events throughout history about civilizations erasing other civilizations to prevent a rise of power in order for the falling one to have their chosen one rise instead of another. So good for them. I applaud them for actually using history to actually tell decent stories. And well, not it's not decent. It's a very good one, and the build up for everything, I think, is going to pay off. But we just gotta wait and see. You know, I'm expecting a lot of things from this. If there's gonna, I think there's gonna be campaign DLCs. The map just screams campaign DLCs everywhere. So so yeah. So let's just hope at it. And on the other side, in the Call of Duty, speaking of, this is Call of Duty channel. Well, let's just hope that Activision fixes a lot of stuff internally that they have. That lawsuit against the cheater developers. It's one thing, but in the perspective of the COD community, it's like throwing a glass of ice water to a house fire. So there's still a lot of stuff they need to fix internally. I understand they want to caught cheaters and everything, but you need to fix a lot about your staff and everything and your core philosophy. But anyways, that's just best wishes for Activision and COD developers. They fixed it everything, and for Halo Infinite, in the theater they're selling. I want to see more. You know, more, not only Halo Infinite, but more so more games that base themselves in real history, even though it's fictitious. But if you're going to go, like space epic, like Halo, like Mass Effect, like Free Space, based it around the history that humans have had in this planet, because it actually helps, people see, well, this is not just an alien thing, it's a human thing. It has happened throughout history. It's just more so we haven't had the time to actually sit down and ask us why, you know. And I think going out of this stream, ending the stream in the note of the Spun Empire, not only because of the Forerunners fearing this, but I think most civilizations that are in power feel a lot of fear of losing their power. And it's that fear that actually drives them to bad decisions that at the end costs them not only the Forerunners, but also all the great civilizations. They reach their height, and instead of staying in their height, they fall down because they fear losing power, and that fear of losing power makes you have bad decisions, you know? And it's because of that that many have fallen. And you can actually take basis on that and apply it to video games. And we're starting to see it with Halo Infinite. It was not the fear of the flood with the Forerunners, it's more so their fear of losing power. It didn't matter if they defeated the flood. At the end of the day, their arrogance against fighting humanity instead of sharing the power and becoming stronger, even though you can stay unique. But anyways, let's just end it on a good note, you know. And oh hey, I'll go over. Um, but yeah, let's end it on a good note. Let's end it that we hope that 343 answers, you know, what is it with the Selenin. I'm actually glad that they based it on real history, about civilizations being annihilated by the ones that were in power. And, I hope that other games take notes about that, because it would actually, you know, you can set up a baddie for 2 3 games, and then the baddie is trying to fight something that you never had noticed about. It's like you fighting Ultron for 3 movies, and then you find out he was right because he wanted to stop Thanos. That is a bigger one. You had to highlight with Ultron. Anyways, that's just me rambling at this point. But there it is. It's based on that. This Saladin, the Endless are based on civilizations being annihilated by the ones in power, and it has happened throughout human history. Just look upon it. Anyways, take care of yourselves, of your loved ones, stay safe, and until next time.